What's up, everyone, and welcome to NSFW, an after-hours podcast that gives it to you straight about the new world of business. On today's episode, we discuss why millennials only seem to want to buy things that look like it was created on Etsy and how it affects your business. And later on in the show, we talk about beer. If you're listening to this at the office, pop in your headphones because this is not safe for work. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the NSFW podcast. I'm Jesse Robluski of Generations Beyond. To my left, as always, is Jesse Viola of APM Shipping Services. And our very special guest of the day is Mr. John Kelly of Greenport Harbor Brewing Company. How's it going, John?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your company, what you do, where you're from, etc.
So I am the Director of Sales over at Greenport Harbor Brewing Company. We've been around since 2009, just cranking away, have our 8th anniversary here in July, and just making great beer, selling great beer, drinking a lot of it.
And how'd you get mixed up in this nonsense?
So I actually kind of good segue into how Jesse and I met, or partially. I started working in the beer industry when I was 12 years old, way before I probably should be working
or labor laws
around beer. But definitely fabricated my age to get a job.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Holy shit, I forgot about that.
So I started there, and now I've worked on every side of the beer industry. I've been on the retail side, on the wholesaler side, now on the brewery side. So it's my life's work, pretty much.
So did you guys do the same jobs growing up, or how'd you get...
Well, so he and I mean, we grew up in the same town. We're both from Lindenhurst. We're friends since, I don't know, like fucking 6th grade or some shit like that. And I think it was like 9th grade. He had been working at the beer store in town, because he was like born like 7 feet tall. So he was like running the beer store like when he was 13 and told the guy he was 16.
Yeah.
The place actually changed hands to a new owner with the original owner never actually knowing how old he was.
I think I actually I was a little bit younger at that point when I changed hands. Like I went from like 16 to 15 because I wanted to know the difference. So I picked up a year there, but
I think it was 9th grade. I was like right before Halloween. I remember it very clearly. He's like, "Yo, you want a job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So Mutt and Jeff at the beer store, and then
some crazy times.
That's Is that where you found your love for pallets?
I swear I found my love for beer. The pallets came much later. But yeah, no, I mean we that was an incredible, super blue collar town, and super like an unbelievable character study in an incredible cast of characters just coming in and out of that place. I mean, unbelievable.
Obviously, a big effect on your life, your professional life, starting out young. Any, they say the shitty blue collar jobs build character, and how did it affect you as the Jesse Viola we know to come and love?
Just try to not be one of those characters.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean he'll probably tell you. I mean, he was great. Obviously, he was great because now he's the director of fucking sales for Greenport Brewery, and he's made a name for himself in the beer business. I was probably a terrible.
I learned a lot about managing people. Having Jesse work for us.
Yeah, it was very clear. It was very clear that I wasn't gonna make it. I wasn't gonna make it in that set, and so I think that's probably really what shaped me. I kind of just hung around, and we would steal beer out the back. I did actually.
Easy.
Aside from the fringe benefits, what do two 15-year-olds do at a beer company?
Listen to a lot of music.
Yeah.
Watched a lot of TV. There's a lot of downtime, especially in the off season. But still, you had to work, and my family comes from consumer packaged goods. So my mom, single mother, she was like, as soon as you can, get the hell out of this house and get a fucking job. And I respect the hell out of her for that.
He took it literally.
Yeah,
12
exactly.
years old.
I mean, she's, she can scare you. So I was like, I'm going to do this. So, so it was interesting. But yeah, there was a lot of downtime, a lot of time to fuck around. That's for sure. But you got to see a different side of society in there too. But yeah, hard work was definitely, you had to do it, and try to get Jesse to do some work.
You know what's funny is that when you think about it, like, you know, going backwards, like we were young kids. I mean, we were like 15, 14 years old, and like we've known each other forever. So like I only know us as like us right now, but like when I think in the picture in my mind, like, you know, we were two young kids working at, like, you know, little boys working at like this beer store, like serving, you know, like this, you know, whole cast of characters of like, you know, daily beer drinkers and weekly beer drinkers, and you know, I mean, he ran the business. He literally ran the business, you know, from that young age, and you know, they trusted him with everything, and you know, we had a great time. We had a great time, and he obviously built a fucking career out of it.
Yeah. So flash forward, were there any gaps in your employment in the beer industry? Was it just straight through coming up the ladder? Do you have downtime now? What do you do day to day?
Yeah, it was straight through. Honestly, we went away to college together. We went to school up in Oneonta for a year. He transferred to New Paltz. I stayed there for 2 years, came home but even still, when I was going up there, I was still working at that store. And then when I was about 24, that was it. It was the end of the line there. I was making good money, honestly, but wanted more, you know, and jumped on board the wholesaler side, and started there as just a merchandiser, which you're just basically packing out beer, putting beer away, hanging signs, stuff like that. And then, again, same thing. I was the sales rep. I was calling on some key accounts like Target and Rite Aid, and then I was a supervisor. So that's what my last stint there was. I was in charge of the 100 beer stores that are on Long Island with a team of about 7 guys. So, and then the same thing happened there. Just 10 years there, little itch that I had to scratch, and wanted to do something different and get on the brewery side of it. So. I've always been also kind of drawn to like the creative side of things too, but I'm not a creative type, but I like working with creative people, and this job gives me that, because I really think the guys who are making the beer, you know, it's like a top chef, you know, it's their heart and soul in the beer, and I get to represent that, and I get to convey that to our consumers and our customers. So that's always been a passion of mine. Even when we were in high school, you know, some bands and stuff like that, I would help make websites for those guys too, kind of as you know, my outlet to get it closer to that part of it. So
this guy is, you know, going back all the way. This is the first guy. I mean, you know, he says he's not a creative and whatnot, but I would challenge that. He's like one of the first people. Like, this guy got into computers and the digital side of media and entertainment like before anybody. This is the first guy that ever had, you know, MP3s on a computer. And, you know, the first guy who would ever have, you know, albums before they dropped, and the whole bit. I mean, he was very, very, very like cutting edge, like, you know, on that. You know, he probably could have done you know, computer science if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But beer tastes better.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I had a Budweiser, and that was the end of it, pretty much. No.
So obviously, I hang in a little bit different of a scene than you guys. Judging
What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say?
My studio. I mean, you guys came in. You walked past a woman dressed as Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman was here. She asked for my number, but I was like, I'm married, so.
So you guys were describing there's some type of a scene out in Riverhead. You're talking about running a beer business. You guys are actually serving people. What's tell me a little bit about the scene going on, what you guys manage out there.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. North Fork of Long Island is a different world from, you know, just where we are right now. And there's a lot of cool things going out there. A lot of farms, you know, a lot of coffee places, brewery. There's 55 wineries out there. So it's definitely, people are paying attention to what they're putting out. And that kind of drew me out there too. I've never spent a lot of time out there until I started working here, but anytime I was out there, I was like, there's something cool going on out here. And it's becoming a destination, much like the Hudson Valley is. A little slower pace than the South Fork, where you have Montauk and the Hamptons, a little bit more glitzy and more of a party scene. It's super laid back out there. So, and it's a lifestyle, you know, is really what's going on out there. And the brewery just kind of fits right in that. So
you guys actually do the brewing on Long Island?
Yes.
Aside from that, as a tourist, as a guy going out there, are there things to do for me?
Yeah, I mean, there's great food. There's great restaurants.
Can I go to your brewery?
Yeah,
and
we
get
have
the experience.
Absolutely, we have tours, tastings. There's a tasting room We're just set to open up a restaurant actually on the brewery, and that's a great part of the business. It's like we can affect our experience to the consumers better than we can in a bar where some guy might be pouring our beer through a dirty draft line or something like that. So that's really the heart of the company, is getting everyone out there and just experiencing the beer the way we meant for it to be experienced. And it's cool. And there's a lot of things like that going on out there right now.
Cool. So one of the things that I want to talk about, maybe we'll hit it up after the break, is this whole artisanal maker movement feel as it pertains to business, as it pertains to marketing. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. During the break, you guys were talking about all your drunken, disorderly conduct and getting arrested and thrown in the paddy wagon. And I was just sitting here celebrating with a soda.
Well, what are we drinking? I mean, let's.
Yeah, so this beer is brewed in. So we have two breweries out there. This beer is brewed in the original brewery in the Village of Greenport. So it's part of a series called OG. So.
Like original gangster, like
gangster, but it's original Greenport. So this is beer from that series. We have a brewer. His name's Pat Alfred. Amazingly talented young man, and this is an IPL. So kind of the fastest growing beer category right now is IPA. So it's similar to that. We use a lager yeast instead. It's called Amazing because it's spelled like maize, I-Z. So there's some flaked corn in there too. So just nice and fruity, easy drinking.
Grapefruit. It's fucking tits.
So to bring it back to my scene a little bit, the marketing, one of the things I was anxious to ask you, you take marketing and business, like in the early 2000s, during the dot-com boom, everything was, big, gigantic, automated, all the dot-coms came along. And then as that bubble burst, everything seemed to kind of swing, the pendulum kind of swung over to the artisanal maker movement. I think you guys were probably the first major industry to kind of be affected by that, where this craft brewery boom kind of came into effect. Do you guys see that pendulum swinging away? Is it still like really strong and growing? It seems like millennials only buy stuff that looks like it was made on Etsy these days. So, I mean, are you still reaping the benefits of this?
Yeah, absolutely. We are. There's no doubt it's getting saturated at this point. I think we're up to like 34 breweries just on Long Island alone. And we were one of the first kind of 12 part of that first wave there. Blue Point, they kind of got it started for Long Island, and then we kind of came shortly thereafter. But yeah, it's going well, but there's a lot now. And what's kind of happening, what we're seeing is it's becoming like hyper local. So where we might be a Long Island brewery, now you're seeing just like maybe a Bayshore brewery or maybe a Greenport brewery. So the people from the town have a feeling for that brewery, and it's getting very, very just dialed down to a zip code, which is honestly the way it is in Germany. There's one beer for the town, and that's what they drink. So we are seeing that. And there's...
Like by law?
No, I mean, not by law, just by just the way it is.
Scheiße. One!
So it's there's a lot right now. Draft lines are a premium. It's cutthroat, So, but it is at the heart of it. It is, guys are paying attention to the quality and using the finest ingredients and things like that. And the best part about that is the price. We can charge a premium for it too. So,
what's your take on, like the movement, the whole bit? I mean, I got a lot of fuel, but I want to hear what, what's your, because I have a love-hate relationship with and nothing to do with beer, but the craft artisanal hipster. Yep. You take that whole pot and you put it together. I have an absolute love-hate with it, but I'm interested to hear your take.
One of my latest sales pitches, you go to a website and they have, the stock photo of the guy in the gray hair and the glasses that you see everywhere.
With a twisty mustache?
Yeah. One of my pitches is, with millennials coming along being the biggest buying power in the United States, you go into your research and millennials don't ask, what you do. they ask why you do it. So like every big millennial brand has a story.
Like what's the impact you're
What's
making?
the impact? You know, on top of the story, you know, the logo looks like it was made with construction paper and, you know, corrugated cardboard. You got Panera, you got Whole Foods, you got all these.
Sure.
It's if it doesn't look like that, it's not green, it's not good for the environment.
Yeah.
So every big brand coming up has a story behind it, has a cause.
Sure.
You know, and you know, there's nothing bad with that. You know, as a designer, as a marketer, you know, it gets oversaturated, it gets boring. You kind of try to stay ahead of the curve and want to see where the pendulum's going the other way so you can get ahead of it. But I don't really see any other industries. Business is booming.
Phantom phone.
I don't see any other industries, you know, coming along, you know, breaking the mold. If anything, people are still falling in line with the, you know, getting in touch with the environment and having a story.
Sure.
So I tell, you know, the clients with the generic stock photos, you know, the up and coming generation isn't looking at just what you do. They want to know who you are, why you do what you do, who you do. And, you know, get your face, get your story out on your website, get it in front of your marketing, because that's what people care about. You know, it doesn't look like it's going to change for a while.
Well, all right. So you said, what's your story, right? I think the reason why, you know, a supermarket becomes Whole Foods, right? You know, a craft brewer becomes Samuel Adams. It's because that story, those individuals, there's something unique and special about those individuals, and then they become this thing, and it becomes successful, and then people see that and they want to, you know, iterate on that, and then you get these like movements and stuff, and I've always had like a, you know, and I trace this all the way back to the days of like, you know, being into music. You know, I've been a musician my whole life, and I've always fucking hated like the band kids. Mm-hmm. You know, I've always hated I've always had such a hard time identifying with like the people who are in scenes, because I always felt like the majority of scenes are people trying to play a part all around, like, you know, the guy who makes the beer, you know, or the guy who actually writes the tunes, or, you know, whatever it is. And like, you know, it's so much more about
it's very much the same thing.
It's so much more about like the experience that the people are getting for themselves, and how they're, you know, how they're attaching it to their personality, how they're personifying, you know, these things. Now, you know, as a 15-year-old kid who all he wanted to do was play guitar, you know, I was like, fuck the scene and this and that. You know, now as a guy who owns a business, you know, I understand it a little bit more, because it's the best marketing. I mean, it's the shit. If you can get everybody to rally around one idea, it's a lot easier to sell them something. And maybe that, even like when I say that, there's a little tinge of cynicism, but at the end of the day, you know, business, you know, if you're in a for-profit business, I don't give a shit what the fuck you say you want your impact to be. You know, there's somebody who is making decisions that wants the impact to be fucking dollars and cents rolling into the bank account. And, you know, I think one of the things that has happened in our society, especially nowadays, is like that's been demonized, and I think that's bad. I think it's bad to like demonize profiteers, because I mean, if you're not hurting anyone, and you're not, you know, fucking the environment, or you're not, you know, doing anything bad, and you're in business, you should absolutely want to make as much money as you possibly can in wheelbarrows full of cash. I mean, if you don't want that, you know, you probably will have, if you don't have somebody who has that type of thought process, you probably won't succeed for very long.
Well, it's funny because you have the pendulum, you have the .com, and then the maker movement is actually counterculture against all the, you know, the big name .coms. It became counterculture, and now it's swung the other way, where the next guy is going to be counterculture against the maker revolution.
But the funny thing about counterculture, and we've talked about this a couple times before, is that like counterculture always becomes the thing that's in vogue.
Yep.
So counterculture really doesn't exist.
The cure becomes the disease.
Counterculture is almost like this thing that's like a thing, but it's not a thing. Because counterculture is the antithesis of itself, because it always becomes the thing that is popular and everybody wants to be, I mean, you look at how many fucking, you walk around Brooklyn, sorry, Corey, in February, and how many guys have the same fucking beanie. And I mean, it's literally like they went to the fucking uniform store and got like, but there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just it's a funny, it's just interesting how humans behave in these patterns.
That's why
we continue to convince ourselves that we're unique and individualistic.
I keep using the pendulum because as a business owner, if you can get ahead of that pendulum and realize, now it's become counterculture and everyone wearing that same beanie. Now I hate that beanie now.
But I think I think that what's true, just like fucking survival of the fittest, it's the same shit. There will always be people like, the guy who started Greenport Brewery, and, there'll always be people that like see these things and make shit, set up shop, put their sign in the grass and say, okay, $5 a beer, come on. There'll always be those people, and that's what pushes things forward.
Yes, I mean, one of the things I read, you have kind of the two schools where you have the big business, the Amazons, the PetSmarts, you're going to get the lowest possible price, but you're dealing with the nameless, faceless conglomerate. Whereas people that tend to migrate towards the artisanal stuff, the guy that drew the label on this himself is going to probably take better care than me. I'll pay extra for it, but I'm going to get that extra smaller company, better feel, better experience. Is there any, why do people come to Greenport instead of Anheuser-Busch?
I think that's part of our message as a brand as well, is that we're a small company, we're 15, 20 people total with part-time guys included. We're all Long Islanders. That's what's important to me, and that's what I do like too, is kind of how it is getting, as I said before, back to like being local. And if you can spend money to help the people that are around you, great. And that's a huge part of our message. We don't have an aspiration to, and I don't think you'll see this, I don't want to say ever again in our lifetime, where there's another Anheuser-Busch. Our aspirations are, what does the brand mean to the person who's going to drink the beer? And either they had an experience at the brewery, they know what goes on the North Fork. So I think, that's the biggest part of our message is, our aspirations are to sell beer on Long Island and New York City, and not much else beyond that.
But you know what? Logically, it's funny that these things disappeared. Logically, you're the guy who starts a brewery in Greenport, right? There's a shit ton of people in Long Island and Brooklyn and Queens.
That's it.
You can make a great living and employ 100 people over the course of a 50-year career. Yeah. And do well. It's weird that so much of that has gone away. Like manufacturing, just generally speaking, it's you would think that like, because there's so many people we live in such a densely populated area, that you would think that there is more locally serving things that are being produced, and it's kind of strange that it went away.
Well, do you being so high up in the company, do you guys have a goal where you're going to be fat and happy and content on Long Island, or is it always manifest destiny? We're going to take over the country, and getting on and on and on.
It's funny you say that, because we just had this conversation the other day, because it's on the sales side of it, it's a hustle. Like it consumes you. Yep. And it's the last thing I think about before I go to sleep. The first thing I think about when I wake up. And we were having the conversation like, when is it enough? Like when do you have to? Why do we have to keep going?
Bobby Axel.
Like why do we have to keep growing? Like when is it enough for the 15 of us that we're all making good money, we're living a good life, we're not working 80 hours a week? So for us, no. Like I'm from Long Island. A lot of us are from Long Island. We don't want to be traveling to North Carolina or down south or stuff like that. And really, for an artisanal brand or a local brand, what does it mean to those people? Mm-hmm. They have their own company down there that means something to them. I think that's what you're seeing too, is even we did sell some beer upstate, and we still do send a little beer upstate. And I've spent some time up there, and I'm going into places, and you're in like Buffalo, and people from Buffalo love themselves in Buffalo, and there's like 40 other breweries up there, where they can put the time in and they can be in those places. And the same thing for the cheese guy from Long Island or the wine guy from Long Island. There's wineries up there too. It's the same thing. It's just just trying to be as mean as much as you can to the smallest group. And luckily for us on Long Island, it's a pretty damn big group.
It's a huge group.
Yeah.
It's a great place to do this.
So you think you could sell enough shrink wrap just on Long Island?
To me, I thought, I mean, there is no enough. Enough is not fucking real, man.
So I think homework is we should think of a business that's just like, I got this big, I'm good.
Yeah. That's
What did Burt Bees do it, and then he got bought up?
We'll have to bring my therapist in here for that conversation because I don't know. I mean, it's odd. It's odd. But I guess it's directly related to, I mean, what I do on the viola side, like music and content, and that is different. On the APM side, it's business. It's like Wall Street. It's numbers. It's commodities. That's the word. And it's about making money. It's about how can I create this? How I'm trying to engineer my own ATM machine that operates by itself and spits out cash for me.
Yep.
And you obviously try to do that as ethically as you can, and you obviously try to do that, and we've talked about this a lot too. Like, it's something that's important to me to provide as much value as I can for the people that work for me, because I understand like they're showing up and they're giving me their 40, 50 hours a week, and so it's important to me that they don't hate their life and they don't hate their job. But at the end of the day, I mean, that place is there because I'm trying to stack coin. So I think the difference maker in that is always going to be, if you brew beer because it really twists your titties in a loop and you just love it and that's your thing, then I think the conversation is different when it's like, well, when is it enough? Because and it's funny. When I first was introduced to this concept, it hit me like out of nowhere. Like when I first started getting into recording music and like producing and that kind of stuff. My partner who does that is he works in the movie industry, and he does like he's a guy who's on set, but his passion is making music and that whole thing. And when we first started doing it, we did a couple of things. We did a couple of like independent films and stuff. And what he said to me was like, if you want to do this, like if you really love this, you have to love the doing of it. Mm-hmm. So like when we're in the studio and we're cutting a record or we're working with a band or we're working with a songwriter, like, the fighting with, that moment, like the 5 or 6 hours that we're here in this room and we're laboring over it, you gotta love that. Because if you don't love that and you just like, you're just trying to like become somebody, or like you're trying to use this as a vehicle to get somewhere, you're going to stop doing this. You know what I mean? Eventually, your wife's going to tell you to get another hobby or whatever it is. And it's never going, if you want to do this and you want to work in it and you want to make money and you want to get opportunities, you got to love the craft. And I think that's what it comes down to. And I think like if you're brewing beer, you obviously love the fucking craft. But we could then get into the philosophical conversation about like, and you probably can relate to this as well, as I think there's a craft of doing business.
There definitely is.
And I kind of love that too.
We've talked about, you being a career musician and actually taking a hobby and making it work. Are you still on that train that it could be something you do as a business?
Well, I think that whole world is morphing into content. You know what I mean? Like I'm a kind of guy, who we produce audio. It's about ideas. You know what I'm saying? It's not about like, hey, I'm trying to become a rock star with music.
Well, punching a clock. Come in at 9, leave at 5, music all day long. Content, ideas, whatever it is. Could you do that?
Well, without a doubt.
And love it.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But I would still be trying to, like, take over the world with that too.
Sure.
I mean, I would still be trying to build that into a $1 billion idea, or I would still be trying to figure out, okay, so we did this. How do we do that? How do we go farther? I mean, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I obviously love toys. I had a toy line for a little while. Now I'm like, fuck making toys. That became a job real quick.
But why?
It became a job. I did not love doing it 40 hours a week. It was miserable.
The design aspect?
It was mostly the production aspect. Just the menial, repetitive production, crazy glue on everything you own, paint.
Yeah.
Is brewing your thing? You could do that 40 hours a week. I know you're working 80 hours a week now.
It's not. I don't know what the hell they do in there.
Well, no, but I mean,
I do know what they do in there, but my passion is business. It always has been, and it's like I live it, breathe it, sleep it, drink it. It's like that's what I do, and so I mean, but I'm fortunate to work with people who have the same passion for making beer.
But I think that not enough people are talking about, and I guess maybe that's what we're doing right now, and kind of a little bit of an undercurrent of what we do here at the show and what we talk about is that business, and I think we're kind of living in the golden age of entrepreneurialism. Or entrepreneurship. I don't know which one would be the correct term. You can take them both.
Leave a comment below.
But the craft of business, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a chess game. It's strategy, and it's like and it's really cool. And you don't. There's not a lot of discussion yet about it. It's really kind of looked at as like, you're a rich guy, you're a wheeler dealer, you know what I mean?
So if you were...
Or you're making an impact on the...
The age-old question, you're independently wealthy, you had your vacation for a month, you come back, you're Marcus Lemonis, you're touching businesses, growing
I think
them.
that guy's weird, so...
All right.
But I get
You're
it.
Profit-like.
Profit-like, yeah.
That's like your thing,
I
your hobby.
dress better than he does. He has fucking terrible sweaters, that guy.
He buys them all at Campers World.
Yeah. Probably does. He's probably a cheap fuck, that's why he's so rich.
I think what you find too is the same way, like I always started off, where I'm drawn to the creative side of it, and music was one part of it, and beer is another part of it. I think the more you get in with those people, and the more I get to talk to the brewers and the guys who make the beer, they have a passion to know, like they want to be passionate about business too. So like the same way that I look at them and I'm like, wow, it's awesome what you guys do. I think we have a great group there, and not everybody's this way, but there's a couple guys there who are like, tell us about the sales numbers, tell us about how you do it, and that's like euphoria for me, like, so, and like I said before, it's like, if there's a brewer who can also sell, look out, like, cause
Sure.
that's it. You're melding the guy who's so passionate about, brewing the beer and knows every little intricate part about it, but he can talk to a bar owner or a restaurant owner. That's dangerous, and that's what you're looking for. So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to see, like, there definitely is this art of business, and I love it. I think, we all here love it. But it's cool to see how some of the guys who are a little bit more creative thinking want to be a part of that too. So it's definitely unspoken. Everybody glamorizes, the brewer, the baker, or whatever,
chef.
the artist. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to find out how many of those guys are like, wow, the guy who's behind me selling it, that's great.
Because the truth is that, I mean, historically up to this point now, I mean, now things are starting to shift because of the internet, mm-hmm. and like you look at music and stuff and how, like, people have to do their own self-promotion. But at the end of the day, being an artist is great. It's the artist is the product, but product doesn't always sell itself. So at the end of the day, you have to have the marriage. You have to have the intersection between art and commerce. And, when they come together, perfectly, that's the shit. I mean, that's the thing that gives you that, the goosebumps.
Yeah.
Is when, it's like Apple. Apple is that.
Mm-hmm.
Apple is the perfect example of that. I mean, he was a fucking hippie, but he was also a cutthroat businessman who and I shouldn't even use that word. He was a driven guy who was looking to grow a company and be financially successful, but they had the cleanest fucking lines in the world, and they, you know what I mean, and you need that. We wouldn't have, there's an endless list of people whose names you don't know that are responsible for Pablo Picasso, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. I mean, endless names of Jewish lawyers who were the guys who got those people.
What's up, Harvey Lemming?
You know what I'm saying? And like, but you need that. You have to have that.
It's a balance.
And I think that, yeah, exactly. It's both play together, because you could be the most talented, most intelligent, most creative person in the world, and if you're sitting on your couch at home and nobody knows about it, well, it doesn't fucking matter.
So it sounds like overall we're all in the spots we're supposed to be. So cheers up.
Righteous.
Congrats.
Cheers.
Bobby Axelrod, everyone at Axe Capital, keep your chin up. We'll be right back.
Axe, quit, bro. Quit.
So that's what we have for you guys today. Thanks for joining us, and I want to thank John Kelly of Greenport Harbor Brewing Company for joining us. And as always, the Wes to my Lord Humongous, Jesse Viola of APM. And I'm Jesse Robluski of Generations Beyond. This has been the NSFW podcast. We'll see you next time.